Hello and welcome to the Aviator's Lounge, your gateway to the freshest headlines, insider insights, and exclusive analysis of the latest developments across the Middle East aviation sector. My name is Karim Tolba, I'm the editor of the Aviator Middle East, and I'm thrilled to be your host on this exciting series. Today, I'm joined by Prachi Patel, the deputy editor of the Aviator Middle East. Prachi, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So to start with, Qatar Airways has recently announced a major expansion plan which would involve substantial aircraft orders as well as other things as well. Could you tell us more about it?
Of course. So Qatar right now is in early stages of the discussions with Airbus and Boeing to acquire up to 150 wide-body aircraft. So maybe in the next few months, the negotiations are expected to be finished, and maybe we will hear some news from Qatar that has placed an order for certain wide-body aircrafts. And this move comes amid basically the rival airlines has been expanding their fleets as well. The Riyadh Air is coming in 2025, which is prompting other airlines and other Middle Eastern airlines to do a fleet modernization and sustain their growth trajectory. The other thing with Qatar Airways, which is really interesting, if you remember that last year, the Qatar Airways CEO, the previous CEO, unveiled the plans to discontinue the first class of Qatar Airways. But the new CEO of Qatar Airways hinted that Qatar is bringing back its first class to long-haul flights. It's in the last stages of development of the first class, which is a really interesting development from Qatar's side. And additionally, if you know that, Qatar Airways also redesigning their business class, which is set to debut in, I think, Farnborough Air Show in July this year.
Does that mean that they're ditching the Q suites? Are
No,
they introducing a brand new product?
They are actually redesigning the Q suites.
Nice.
And that's going to make its debut in Farnborough this July.
Nice. I remember clearly His Excellency Akbar al-Bakr, the former CEO, saying that the first class was unnecessary given the current offering that Qatar Airways has, especially the Q suites. So that really marks a key strategy shift in Qatar Airways' vision for the future, if I may say. Now, moving on to another exciting development, there have been speculations of a possible deal between the PIF and Saudia to acquire the national airline. Now, while this hasn't been confirmed, it's actually exciting to see how this would unfold and how this would impact the industry in the coming months.
100%.
Saudi Arabia is literally moving in leaps and bounds when it comes to consolidating its efforts and developing its aviation sector. Now, on top of that, there have been rumors of a possible plans to either privatize Saudia after the said acquisition, or even to merge it with Riyadh Air.
That is really interesting.
It kind of defies, on one side, it defies the initial purpose of having a dual national carrier model.
Yeah.
But then again, it would be exciting if that happens. This would be a major contender if that happens, and if they consolidate the two airlines into one big airline, that would pose considerable competition to other airlines in the market.
It all aligns with the Saudi national aviation strategy, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Because they want it to be an aviation hub by 2030. They want to attract 330 million people by then. So I think this move is completely... It makes sense, actually.
I mean, we'll have to wait and see if this ever happens. Personally, I believe it makes perfect sense for the PIF to take over, given what they've already done with other aviation stakeholders. Definitely. From Riyadh Air. Speaking of Riyadh Air, they just marked their first year anniversary, and that was impressive. The number of agreements and partnerships that they've forged, I would say they're going to be ready to make an impact from day one.
Definitely, definitely. I think if we are talking about Riyadh Air, from the MRO perspective, the airline is actively, working with the other maintenance services providers, and I think that's going to be really, really interesting partnerships happening from Riyadh Air within the sectors, the MRO sectors.
Not just in the MRO sector, but
Yeah.
they're building their capabilities across the board, from their technology, from their customer experience as well. And that's the beauty of building something from scratch.
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
So moving on to the positive side of things, the industry has actually been experiencing a strong resurgence in recent months. And that was reflected in IATA's report of air traffic and passenger demand in January 2024. So according to the report, the industry has seen a 17% increase in demand in January alone. Of course, this was reflected across the world in the majority of the regions, but also especially in the Middle East.
Definitely, because Middle Eastern airlines, they experienced a 16.2% of increase in air traffic in January 2024. And I assume that it's going to be the same, like the similar increase in the next few months as well.
So, and that's not only on the passenger side, but also the air cargo sector is experiencing pretty much the same rate of growth. So according to the same report, the air cargo sector has experienced an 18.4% growth in January, if I'm not mistaken. And this is forecasted to endure and to persist over the remainder of the year.
Yeah, 100%, because IATA forecasted that all the regions are going to experience an average of 4.5% growth during 2024. And specifically, Middle East is poised for 12.3% growth throughout this year.
And that I'm sure would have a trickle effect on the other segments across the industry, including, of course, the ground handling segment.
Yeah, definitely, because we've been seeing within the industry that the service provider, for instance, dnata, which is expanding their operations within the region and internationally as well. dnata is acquiring FedEx's current facility at Dubai International Airport, so which will give dnata an additional 4,000, I think, square meters
of capacity.
Of capacity, yes.
Up next, we have an exclusive interview with the Group CEO of dnata, Steve Allen, to discuss this matter in further detail, as well as dive deeper into the key trends shaping the ground handling sector, and also the company's vision for growth and expansion and its planned investments in technology to boost its capabilities and enhance its operational efficiency. Steve, thank you so much for joining us today, and in fact, thank you for having us.
Oh, my pleasure. It's always a pleasure to welcome you to Emirates headquarters, and the fantastic view of the airport that we've got here behind us reminds us, what we're about to talk about, I guess.
It is truly fantastic. I really love the background. Now, diving straight into our interview, I would like to start with a topic that's a personal favorite: technology.
Okay.
Recently, dnata has been investing heavily in innovative technologies to enhance its offering and expand its capabilities. Can you tell us more about your recent investments in technology, and what role do they play in enhancing your operational efficiency?
Sure. Well, as you say, throughout the last decade, really, we've invested heavily in technology to try and automate our processes, to try and ensure that we have great control and planning around everything that we do. And we've got a number of examples of where, for many years we've been using things like robotics and machine learning within our operations to ensure that we're as efficient as we possibly can be. So really, we're continuing down that track. I know everybody these days is talking about AI and drones and things like that. That's the latest additions, but it's really a continuation of our investment. So if I give a few examples, in our most advanced cargo facilities, the way that we handle the cargo is effectively automated as much as it possibly can be. So the moment it arrives off an aircraft, it's taken to the warehouse, it's put onto an automated racking capability. When it's taken off the racking, the breakup and the distribution of the cargo, to the docks for the freight forwarders to pick up is automated. So with our modern systems, there are messages automatically sent to freight forwarders for them to be able to book a slot to come and pick up their cargo. Makes them more efficient, makes our warehouses more efficient. Again, we have massive storage racking that enables us to store high volumes of cargo and call that cargo at a moment's notice. And the most recent innovation that we've put in place is having drones in the warehouses. So what the drones do is that they fly up and down the warehouse, checking on stock, monitoring it on a constant basis, extremely accurate in terms of the stock monitoring, the placement of where the cargo is held in the warehouse, and therefore very quick and easy access into that. We've also introduced the capability of being able to measure every single piece of cargo and through using artificial intelligence, inform us as to how to build the cargo so that it's built in an optimum way on every pallet. So you can really optimize the use of every square inch of a belly hold of an aircraft or on a freighter. And we estimate that will improve the sort of density of cargo on board by up to 10%, which is a major increase. So on the cargo side, we've really been digitizing the whole operation, and we want to continue that along that track and make sure that we do that consistently all over the world in our cargo operations. If I look at our ground handling side, we have very advanced staff allocation tools, so planning tools, allocation on a daily basis, so we ensure every staff member is in the right place at the right time. And when you look at airports, there's so many moving parts that being able to have technology to help us ensure we're as efficient as we can be and people in the right place at the right time is obviously a critical capability for us. So resource management systems, we have what we call event tracking systems, which basically just track every single part of an aircraft turnaround. Is it happening on time? Has it been delivered? When did it happen? And making sure we can coordinate everything effectively. And that's a tool that we're rolling out all over the world, our turnaround tool, as we call it. So we use all sorts of sort of technology that's been around for the past decade, but also looking to continually develop that. And we work with the suppliers on their next innovations that they're bringing in and trial and test it in many of our operations around the world.
Allow me to take a step back to
Sure.
AI. You mentioned the role of AI in enhancing your cargo operations. How are you leveraging this technology to streamline your operations and actually meet the market demands?
Yeah, so we gather all the information from the airlines and from the freight forwarders about what volumes they want to ship. And traditionally, this has been a very paper-based approach. And we've had people consolidating all of that information. Now we're automating all of that. We're getting, our customers to log their data either online or through their airline systems. And then we're using the technology to be able to then piece that together into a plan of exactly what volumes are coming through, at what time of day, what day of the week, making sure we know exactly what to expect in terms of our handling. And therefore we can plan our resources and we can ensure that cargo spends the minimal amount of time possible going through the cargo warehouses either to or from the aircraft. If you do that, you can truly optimize your operations and you can really multiply your capability without having to buy just more space and more people.
Now, given the vast scope of your operations, you must be getting huge amounts of data on a daily basis. How are you leveraging this data and harnessing its power to enhance your operations and improve your efficiency?
Well, if I can move on to another example for you, maybe, and it's in our catering business. So we do in-flight catering and retail for many airlines around the world. And for some of the airlines, we do all the onboard retail. Now, the data that we're collecting is vast on what do you put on board in terms of sales. Traditionally, it's been watches and duty-free goods and chocolate goods, things like that. What are we putting on board? What's being consumed by the customer? And if you do that by route, by day of week, by time of year, you can actually target exactly what are the right products to put on board that will maximize the customer consumption. And different routes have different demands. As you can imagine, a route on a Monday morning from London to Paris is a commuter route. So the type of people on board will consume different things on board. They maybe want a bit of breakfast and a coffee than a route that's a holiday route, where people want to be a little bit more frivolous and sort of get chocolate bars and really let their hair down. Through fine-tuning that data, we've managed to increase the onboard sales per seat by more than double. And that's a really good example of the use of big data and artificial intelligence to really fine-tune exactly what do we load every day, every minute of the day to suit the customer's needs. And of course, the customers are happy as well, because you get on board and you don't get the, "Oh, sorry, we've got none of that left, sir." So great customer experience, really efficient, and increasing the profits through the use of AI.
Autonomous vehicles and ground service equipment are becoming an integral part of airport operations. How are you integrating these technologies and these kind of vehicles into your operations to enhance safety and efficiency?
So we're trialling on autonomous vehicles, both here in Dubai and in other locations around the world, like Singapore. I think it's still fairly early days for autonomous vehicles, because obviously safety is an absolutely prime concern at an airport. You are obviously responsible for very large pieces of equipment and a lot of people passing through a very confined space. So these trials are extremely important at identifying where can we use autonomous in a safe, efficient way in a live airfield environment. I can see there's projects around the world where people are saying they're now putting them into operations, but it tends to be on very simple point-to-point aspects of an airfield operation away from the aircraft themselves. And I think that's where this autonomous capability will come in first. And then as we become more familiar with it, it's integrated into the airport systems, then autonomy can be used elsewhere. So I do see it's got a way to go yet. Lots of projects around the world talking about autonomy, but the true scalable use of it is still really got to meet all those safety requirements.
In your opinion, what are the key challenges and trends shaping the air cargo market today? And how are you capitalizing on these opportunities and navigating these challenges?
So the Middle East is one of the fastest growing regions of the world in terms of air transport and I think indeed in terms of freight and cargo. But also there's some major projects and programs going on in the Middle East. Obviously we know about the investments going into Saudi, but also Dubai, for example, is growing quite substantially at the moment. The growth is up in the sort of 5-6% range. And there's more and more events happening in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, that obviously we help to facilitate. So we're seeing significant growth in cargo volumes coming into this region. In Dubai in particular, we're seeing that with Destination Dubai to service the growing population, the events that are happening. But also, the growth of the carriers in Dubai, in Etihad down in Abu Dhabi, obviously got Qatar Airways over in Doha. Major hubs in the region are bringing more and more cargo through those hubs. So we've seen significant growth. I think this year, cargo volumes overall globally have grown about 12%. I think we're looking at about 20% in this region. So significant uptick. And what we are seeing is that the cargo moving from the east to the west is also being impacted by the Red Sea challenges. So we're seeing sea freight come into the ports in Dubai, for example, and then being transferred onto air freight from Dubai into Europe. So there's sort of business as usual type growth, which is really positive, but there are some global events which are impacting cargo movements as well.
And how are you particularly capitalizing on these opportunities, the emerging opportunities in the market?
Our growth here in Dubai, we have major cargo operations here in Dubai. We've extended our capacity by more than 20% this year, brought more warehouse space into the market. Obviously, we've introduced all the extra automation to be able to cope with the extra volumes coming through as well. So it's a major plus for us, the extra cargo volumes. And we're keeping a very close eye on what's happening in the market to see where the other growth opportunities are. One of our other major Middle East investments is up in Erbil in Iraq. We're building a new cargo facility up in Erbil, which will be state of the art, and it really is a great gateway into that part of the world, and very successful to date, and we're looking for more expansion there as well.
Can you tell us more about dnata's new facilities and recent facility upgrades and the value that these would bring to your offering?
So we have the Erbil facility being built. We have a massive new facility in Amsterdam being built, state of the art, one of the world's largest cargo warehouse facilities. Obviously, with sustainability at its core, so it'll be one of the most advanced warehouses in the world as well. That will come online in middle of 2025. We have brand new facilities at London Heathrow, which are fully operational and thankfully now full. Really, again, using the technology and the capability that we've developed, as a global organisation. So they're on board. We have one of the most modern cargo facilities up in Karachi, which is sort of held as a beacon of capability up in Pakistan. So we continue to expand our cargo facilities around the world, but with the digital and sustainable platforms that we want as a consistent offering wherever we are.
That's great. Now let's move to a challenge that's facing the entire industry. Labor shortages have been a headache for the entire industry, including air cargo as well. How are you mitigating the impact of this challenge, and how are you upskilling your people to better serve your customers' needs?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great segue, because I think the first thing is that we want to reward the people who've worked with us for many years, and therefore offer them opportunities to grow their careers. So we're offering comprehensive training programs, leadership programs for people to step into those first tiers of leadership, to ensure that we're seeing the existing talent grow within our business. And then obviously bringing in new talent. We've had to attract people back to airports that left during the pandemic. The world, in particularly certain parts of the world, if I look at Northern Europe, if I look at Australia, if I look at the US, the employment rates are extremely high, and therefore it's difficult to attract people back into the business. So we've looked at our reward packages, both the basic reward package, but also the benefits that we give to our staff. We've looked at things like roster patterns. We've looked at things like more flexible working, trying to attract new people into the industry. We've also looked at different ways of advertising. So, for example, we have a very successful TikTok campaign going on in the UK at the moment, which has attracted a lot of interest and really displayed to people potentially working at an airport what airport life is all about, and that's generated a huge amount of interest. So we've had to look at new ways of recruiting, and then what we're really offering is a great company, a great place to work with career opportunities as being part of a major global multinational, and then ensuring that we deliver on our promises. So once people do join, we test them every year in terms of a culture survey to see what's it like working here. Is it what you expected? Is there more that we can do? And I think that's generating a real momentum now, and the shortages of labour which we've experienced over the last few years are starting to become, just on a basic manageable level.
Now, on the subject of people, you highlighted your investments in automation. How do you see this impacting the existing workforce?
I think some jobs will be directly impacted by the automation, but new jobs are being created all the time. So there's plenty of roles for people who are, in the data science environment, in the operational coordination environment. But the machines that are coming in to automate some of the more manual tasks, inevitably are going to start to take over some of those roles. But it will be gradual. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over the next decade, and we need to transition our workforce towards that. We envisage that we'll be recruiting another 15,000 people over the next 3 years. So there's no shortage of work for everybody. We've got to merge this emerging automation with the current employee workforce.
This brings me to my next question. Now, sustainability has become a key priority for the entire aviation sector, and of course, dnata is no exception. What measures or what strategies have you got in place to curb your the impact of your operations on the environment?
So we've been, again, working on this for a while. It's not new, but the gradual shift and the momentum behind sustainability is coming, whether it's from our customers, our suppliers, and obviously because it's the right thing to do. So we've set ourselves a target by 2024 of reducing our carbon footprint by 20% from 2021, and by 50% by 2030. And we're not going to set those targets unless we know how we can get there. And we've got plans, almost every part of our business, to improve on our carbon footprint, on our waste to landfill, on our reduce of single-use plastics. And if I give you just a few examples, I mean, one of our biggest carbon footprints comes from the equipment at the airport, the ground service equipment. So we've identified all of the possibilities of replacing that ground service equipment, either through electric or through hydrogen fuel cells. And now it's a case of, as we replace our fleets, then we want to replace them with what we call green first. We've already negotiated those contracts. It's about how quickly we can bring that in. We are dependent on the infrastructure of the airports. And this is the biggest challenge for us, is, there has to be a way of recharging the equipment. There has to be a way of parking it in the right place. So we're working with the airports now all over the world to make sure we have the right infrastructure for us to progress with our plans. I would say part of my frustration is I think our plans are ahead of their capability, and therefore now it's up to us to influence that as strongly as we can.
Well, thank you for answering my next question. I was about to ask you about some of the challenges facing electric fleets, and especially when it comes to airside vehicles and GCEs. Besides the infrastructure, how do you find the weather here impacting the operation of electric fleets?
Well, that's a great question, and one that a lot of people don't ask. Because it's easy to sit here in March and think this is a great environment to operate an electric vehicle, but when it's 50 degrees and sometimes up to 60 degrees on the tarmac outside in the middle of summer in the Middle East, the traditional performance of a battery is not as it would be normally. So for all of the electric vehicles, we've been running tests with the manufacturers throughout the summer period to see what works and what doesn't, and how we can enhance the operation. Not just the technology, but how we run the operation to ensure that we make things as smooth as possible. So, very simple example, if we have electric buses airside, if we park them in the shade, then you don't need to cool them down when you want to use them. If you park them in the sun, you have to cool them down, which drains the batteries massively. So we're now working with the airport to ensure that there's shaded parking areas. Sounds very simple, but this is how we're going to reduce our carbon footprint, by working smartly in the conditions that we're in.
And have you already integrated electric vehicles into your operations?
Oh yes, yeah. All over the world we now have significant electric capability. Even here in Dubai, we're running with electric capability in almost all of our fleet types, and then we just need to expand the numbers of electric vehicles. But some airports are now starting to mandate that we should have either electric or hybrid vehicles. So, for example, in Amsterdam, I think it's the use of biofuels has been mandated. So all of our vehicles in Amsterdam are now using biofuels. So our objective is to be ahead of the game, ahead of the regulation, influencing the regulation and making sure that we're making progress faster than anybody else.
Now, Steve, looking ahead, as the industry continues to evolve, what do you see as the next frontier of technological innovation for dnata?
I think the area that we need to develop more as an industry is on the robotics side. So we've got robotics, for example, baggage systems. That's robotics, these massive automated baggage systems that run underneath airports. We've got robotics in the warehouses in terms of automated shelving with automated pickers coming off those. But what we've not really integrated is robotics where there's moving parts. So if you look at an aircraft turnaround, for example, because the aircraft moves to come in, there's lots of moving parts around it. Integrating robots into the moving parts areas where they're not just running on a track or running on a shelving is more complex. But that needs to be where we get to, where robots are integrating with people. and carrying out some of the heavy lifting tasks and the more repetitive tasks on behalf of people operating them, and then people become more operators than they do actually performing the manual tasks themselves. That'll improve safety, it'll improve efficiency, and obviously automation is part of our future, and we need to embrace it.
And how do you see the industry's role in actually advancing the development of these technologies?
Well, we're working with various manufacturers from inside the industry, but also from other sectors where they've successfully introduced robotics, and then trialing and testing them. We have a fantastic opportunity to continue working in the right environments at airports all over the world, in the right environments to trial and test new capability and then eventually bring it to market. And we see that as part of our role as the global professionals, if you like, in cargo and ground handling, to help them develop the technology so that it benefits them, it benefits us. So proof of concepts, trialing and testing, and then eventually bringing to market.
Now, this brings me to my last question for today. So how do you foresee the future of aviation in the Middle East, and what role will dnata play in it?
So I think the future is very bright in this region. The region's a growing region. There's new airport infrastructure coming online on a regular basis. So we're really proud to be part of the growth of the Middle East. I think, as dnata, we're experts in the Middle East because this is our home, and therefore we feel that we have an advantage in this region, and really, enjoying growing with the region. As a result, we're looking for all the opportunities. We're looking for where, the airport growth means there's new handling opportunities, new cargo opportunities. We will invest where it's sensible to ensure we grow our operation. And we'll continue to work very closely with our partners and customers to try and predict the future. And we want to be there with them.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve, for the great insights.
Thank you for interesting set of questions, and hopefully it's been informative.
Thank you. Thank you for the great insights, Steve, and thank you so much for the exciting conversation, Prachi. I really, really look forward to our next episode.
Yeah, I look forward to that as well.
Thanks for joining us today. Don't forget to catch our next episodes for more aviation insights, in-depth analysis, and engaging discussions. Subscribe to theaviatorme.com and follow us on Spotify for more exclusive content.